Why does God need atonement for humanity's eternal existence? This is a very important question because without knowing the answer to this question, we won't be able to understand why Jesus Christ had to be given as a ransom for many, as we Christians all talk about today. So to answer this question, we're going to go back to the beginning of the Bible. If you read Genesis chapter 2, you see where God created man and put Adam in the Garden of Eden. And in verses 16 and 17, he commanded that of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil thou shalt not eat of it. For in the day that thou eatest thereof, thou shalt surely die. So we can already see here that God gave a commandment to Adam and said that if you obey this commandment, then you will be able to live forever. But if you disobey this commandment, you have committed an offense that I judge to be worthy of death. And since God is the ultimate judge, if you read Genesis chapter 18 verse 25 and Psalm 50 verse 6, then that judgment must stand. And as we know, in Genesis chapter 3, Adam and Eve had actually went ahead to disobey God. And as a result of them disobeying that commandment, that is, they committed this offense worthy of death, God had to sentence them to death. As we read in Genesis chapter 3, verses 16 to 19, that they were made of the dust of the ground and that they would have to return to that state as a result of their sin. Now, I want us to keep in mind that when God was talking to Adam, saying that because you have done this, you will have to die and stuff like that, he wasn't just talking to Adam as an individual person. No, Adam and Eve, of course, as well, they represented humanity at the time. They represented all of man. So when God was talking to them, he was actually talking to all of humanity who were still in the loins of Adam. That was why even after they continued to have children, all those children started dying, including all of humanity today. We all came from that, and that's why humans still continue to die today. Because as Job pointed out in Job chapter 14, verse 4, can a clean thing that is a perfect, holy, pure thing come out of an unclean thing? Not one. It's not possible, because all have sinned and all have come short of God's glory. If you read Romans chapter 3 verse 23, and as Paul also said, wherefore, as by one man sin entered into the world, and death by sin, and so death passed upon all men, for that all have sinned. If you read Romans chapter 5 verse 12, and what's more, David had said, behold, I was shapen in iniquity, and in sin did my mother conceive me. So it was as a result of man committing this offense worthy of death. It's not different from someone committing murder or any other offense worthy of death in this world. It's like when you commit that offense, then in order for proper justice to be served, man has to be put to death. And if you read Genesis chapter 9 verses 4 to 6, God actually made this clear to Noah that because man was made in the image of God, man is subject to God's justice, which is that when man sheds blood or commits an offense worthy of death, their blood has to be shed. And Jesus Christ used the parable of the unforgiving servant in Matthew chapter 18 verses 21 to 35 to show us that this offense that humans committed, that is by disobeying God and so on, is like a debt that we can't pay, because no matter how much money we might want to offer or give, it can't really buy that perfection back. That's why the psalmist said, they that trust in their wealth and boast themselves in the multitude of their riches, none of them can by any means redeem his brother, nor give to God a ransom for him. But the question I know some of you guys have in your head right now is, okay, if that's the case, what happens to the righteous? What happens to the people who wouldn't have done what Adam did? The people who obey God, especially regarding God's principle that the children shouldn't be put to death for the offenses of their fathers and stuff like that. What does God have to say about that? What would God do about that? And the answer is, as a result of God's infinite love and mercy, he decided that, okay, even though for humans to be able to pay this debt, they have to continue dying forever and ever and ever. That's how justice is served. I am going to put something that will stand in the place of that. In other words, instead of the righteous having to die eternally, the blood of one man who is perfect, who is not sinful, would be able to stand in the place of that. And that's where the sacrifice or ransom of Jesus Christ came from. If you read Matthew chapter 20, verse 28, and Isaiah chapter 53, verse 10, for example, where Isaiah the prophet had said, "Yet it pleased the Lord to bruise him," that is Jesus Christ, "he hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Lord shall prosper in his hands." So by Jesus Christ dying for all human beings, if you read Romans chapter 5, verses 15 to 19, then those who are righteous, who unfortunately had to inherit sin from our ancestors, Adam and Eve, they will be able to be exempted from that in a way, because in the world to come that God has promised for his faithful children, if you read James chapter 1 verse 12, 1 John chapter 2 verse 25, and many other passages, God will use the atonement that was provided by the death of Jesus Christ to stand in the place of the righteous, so that they will be able to live freely. They will be freed from the judgment that God has placed on man. So I hope that this makes it a little bit clear. The reason why man was sentenced to death is because God had said that this is an offense that is worthy of death, so if you commit it, you are now worthy of death. And of course, as we know, Adam and Eve went ahead to commit the iniquity, but he then used the death of his son Jesus Christ to stand in place of that, so that the righteous, which hopefully is you and I, will be able to live forever in spite of what had happened in the Garden of Eden. So if you enjoyed this video and learned something new today, then I would appreciate if you click the like button and also the subscribe button. And if you want to be notified when I come back with another video just like this, then you can click the notification bell. Have a good day, and I'll see you in the next video.